Playbook. My name is Gabe Hofmann, also known as the Dental Efficiency Guy, and I am excited to introduce to you tonight our first and only unicorn guest, Clint Barry. Clint, well, for those of you that don't know what a unicorn is, Clint was the CTO and a co-founder of Weave Communications, which many of you are aware of and probably use in your practices and groups. I personally used Weave after a brief stint with Solution Reach in my group, as a matter of fact. But with that said, Clint was largely played a large role in the growth and development, the foundation of building a strong culture to lead Weave Communications back in 2021 to a really lucrative $1.8 billion valuation and IPO. So, for those of you that don't know, a unicorn is an individual that has grown a company to over $1 billion. So, Clint, you are the first individual that I have had as a guest that has done that. So, welcome to the Dental Efficiency Playbook. Clint now leads a team. Uh, the business is Kolla, and Kolla is making major moves in data solutions. And as those of you that listen to the show know, data is extremely important. Data will be a superpower for you or will be a giant challenge for your practice and or group. So I'm excited to talk to you. It's great having you on the show, Clint. Um, can you take a minute and walk through with the guests your experience? So how your experience at Weave led you to where you are today with Kala and focused on data solutions.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you. That's a really good intro. It definitely makes me sound cooler than I am, but not that cool. But I am glad to be your first $1 billion valuation company. I wish that meant I was like super wealthy, but it doesn't mean that.
Well,
We
in
raised
knowing
a lot of money, but our venture capitalists made some good money on that deal.
I do know from learning about you that you left right before the IPO, correct?
Yeah, so you know what? That ended up being a pretty good blessing. So our my co-founders got let go by the board, which was that was a big bummer, right? After hitting 12 straight quarters, and there's a lot of reasons to it. We won't go into that, but it just made it hard. I only stuck around for another like 9 months trying to help transition with the new CEO and my team transition. But it just got to the point where you didn't want it. You talk about culture, the culture starts dying lots of times when the founders leave. And it was
Yeah.
definitely happening. And I was being shoved out anyway. And so I finally just said, I'm out. I'm selling my stock. They had first right of refusal. I sold it all at the IPO price right before it went IPO, and then it went public, and then summarily went down to started at $22 a share and dropped over the next few months to $3 per share. So
Oh,
I got kind of
wow.
lucky there that I did that. It was not a business
Ah, it was a
decision.
blessing then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. But it wasn't necessarily because I was smart. It was a very emotional decision. I just like I want out of here and I don't want anything to do with it anymore. But they've got a new CEO, Mr. White. I can't remember his first name, Brett White, and he seems to be very capable and things are going well at Weave again. So, and I've talked to some employees there that things they seem to be happy there again and things are going well. So hopefully I still cheer for him, even though I don't have any financial interest in him. After being there for
Sure.
9 years and creating it, it still feels like your baby. And even now, when I'm helping dental offices now doing their data warehousing, I'll remote into servers and I'll see Weave on the system, and I'm like, that's so cool. It's really cool. I always get a little bit nervous as the technical person. In the early days of Weave, it was really hard building a phone system, lots of outages. And so I always know there's someone out there cursing my name when you're introducing me. They're like, he's the CTO of Weave. He's like, we had multi-day outages in 2015. Well, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's inevitable, right? With phone systems, VoIP phones and phone services, you're going to have uncontrollable outages.
Yeah, I
And
wish they were all uncontrollable. But a lot of them were controllable. It was just naivety or new to phones. Like it's so funny because it's like phones, you feel like are a commodity. You feel like that should be the easiest part of the business. It definitely was the hardest part. The software was much easier than the phones. But yeah.
wow. And for me being an operations guy, I would think that like growing the company to the size that it was and building the culture that you built, right, based on those giant companies, right? The Googles, the Netflix, like the companies that you modeled in creating just a fabulous culture would be the most challenging aspect.
Well, that probably if you're looking at it from the people side of it and the managing side, for sure, that's the most challenging part. But it's also a part I was really passionate about. So that part didn't feel like work as much as some of the other pieces, right? Building the culture was really fun. I was over the engineering department, and we were the our engineering department had cultural values established before the company did. That's how passionate I was. Maybe even too early, when we have like 15 people and I'm like, here's our values. But I love that part. I love scaling organizations, especially in engineering. So that was really fun. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
Weave was just an incredible experience to be a part of. That was my first foray into dental. And as they say, at least in dental software, once you get into dental, it's really hard to get out because it's such a fun, good industry with great people.
so
um,
true.
it's one of the biggest small businesses. I know that sounds, or I guess it's one of the biggest local business industries. We won't call it small business, but brick and mortar style location based industry. So it's a great place to be, and we love it. We love being in dentistry. So
Yeah, it's funny, you say that. Any of us that have jumped out, like anybody I know that has jumped out has either regretted or been back within a very short period of time. And you see that because people change positions. You go to shows or conferences and you'll see people in different seats or under different brands every so many years. But when you've been in the game as long as I have, you see a lot of the same people. There's a lot of new too, don't get me wrong, but you see many of the same faces just in different places, and that's super cool. You know, um, it's a business that when I jumped in, I was like, hey, I can grow a business. And DSOs were new then, right? So like when I jumped into the game, Heartland Dental was 125
oh
practices,
yeah,
and they
a
were
long
the
time ago.
first to start expanding nationally, the
Yeah.
DSOs. And so that was really cool because I jumped in at a time when they were growing like at a rate of like 400% per year, which
Wow.
again, the whole DSO model was unheard of when
Yep.
they started expanding. And then they went from 125 to like 300 really quickly, and then 300 to 600. Like so, then they capped out at a point before they had three different large investments to scale. And so I got familiar with the affiliated model at that point, and I was blessed because Heartland Dental probably has the best non-dentist training program, right? They have their facilities. They put you through like a master's in the business of dentistry if you're an operator in the business. Likewise, if you're a clinician, you have tons and like just as much CE as you need to learn everything you need to learn. So it was a
I
great
totally
experience for me learning the business of dentistry back then. But
That's so
um,
cool.
but that was how I got into dentistry. I was in commercial leasing, and my mom worked in the industry or worked with the industry, and I wanted to get into healthcare, and I ended up in dentistry, and I've been there ever since.
We're
Uh,
all stuck
so
here, Gabe. We're all stuck. But it's
Yeah,
incredible to
but
see
but
stuff
but you
happen.
know what? It's really really cool because as you continue to spend more time in it and your network grows and you wear different hats or you learn different aspects, um it it's just never ending the amount that you can learn and the where the business can go. And so I never imagined then that I would be hosting a podcast and connecting with people in this manner. as well as the businesses that I run now. But it's really cool because while dentistry, the product, which is a happy paying patient, is always going to be the same, the way that you get to that or the way that you serve them is so very different, right? And there's so many different avenues in which you can serve it. So that's super cool. Um, but um, but I am I'm interested in learning about. Okay, so you were at Weave for 9 years, right? Why data? I mean, I will share with you. I was at what show was I at? I was at a conference, the Dental Festival, and Pat Bauer was there. Again, Heartland Dental. We were just talking about Heartland Dental because of where I started my career, but Pat Bauer, the CEO of Heartland Dental, there was there. He was speaking, and he said, "We are in the business of data." I had never heard a large DSO operator or executive say that prior, and they are the largest DSO in the nation. My consulting, my coaching, working with offices, as well as in all the doctors that I have known over the years, how data can either be a huge value to the practice or group, or it can truly be the demise, right? Challenge after challenge, and ultimately, whether it's lawsuits or just a mess, right, in operations, and leading to, in some cases, reorganization or ultimate challenges with the business.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how'd you get to, data solutions?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So Weave was a phone system, and the only thing that made it special was that it had access to the data. That's what differentiated it from every other phone system out there, and that's what made it dental specific. Was that like we integrated with the practice management system, and it was hard to do.
And
Like
grabbed the data or grabbed and wrote back the data, right? We
both, right? We did both.
both.
Yeah, because we would do texting as well. We're a communications company, so it was appointment confirmations and marking those confirmed back in the system, and then it was online appointment scheduling, like all
I was
that
going to
stuff
say,
that
but
came
that
in.
wasn't the start, right? The
No,
start
that wasn't the
was
start.
answering the phone, and then it was answering the phone in partial write back, then it was answering in full write back, and then it was the text communications and the emails and so forth, right?
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of the progression that that we took that you just described. But it also is extremely difficult. And if you're asking me, I'd say the one of the reasons that you'd say maybe dental is behind in technology and innovation compared to maybe other software industries, particularly where in the world I am, it feels like dental is a little bit behind, is because the access to that data is so dang difficult to get access to, and they intentionally make it hard to get access to, which is super frustrating. These PMS vendors, and
I was
so
gonna say, yeah, the PMS vendors, especially a couple in my mind, either they're extremely antiquated, so it's a challenge to get to it, or they lock it down, and the company that has the largest market share wants to make it difficult and very expensive to consistently integrate, right?
yeah, they
So
want that revenue. They want say, oh, you want access to the data, then we're going to charge you $45 a location or $50 a location to do write backs and get access to that data. So it's a little bit frustrating. I think that part of it is a little bit worse than other industries. So
yeah,
yeah, we
that
started
makes
out by
sense.
trying to make that a little bit easier. At Weave, the only player around that did something like that was Sika. And kudos to them for being the first ones to do it. But I remember when we were, what's 2011, we reached out to them and they gave us a quote. It was like $1 million or something. I don't know if they thought we were wealthy or what. We're like, I guess we're building our own. So we built our own integrations to all these systems at Weave, and
So Sika was an investor in Weave to
no,
launch you
they
guys?
wanted to charge us $1 million a year to use their platform for some reason,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know if they saw us as that maybe they had designs to do what we did. I don't know. It was basically a hey, screw you guys, it's fine. But so we ended up having to build our own. And so by the time I left Weave, we had two large integrations teams. mostly doing maintenance. We would add new integrations in other industries, but a lot of it was maintenance and like keeping up with them. And if you looked at like a salaries and benefits combined for the two teams, we're pushing about, almost $2 million a year to maintain your integrations and build new integrations. So it's a lot of money to build and maintain integrations. And that was one of
Oh,
the
wow.
driving factors with Kolla, with our new company, is we feel like we can be a new modern integration platform to help the next generation of weaves get access to that data much cheaper, easier, and safer. And so that's kind of what got us going. But then as we started progressing and signing up customers and things like that, we would come in contact with DSOs who were a lot of DSOs who don't force their locations to switch practice management systems, have real data issues, right? All the data is different, all the reports are a little bit different, and they're looking for ways to, how do we get it all centralized? How do we make it all under the same format? And so we built this data warehousing solution on the top of our integration platform, which already had one schema for all these practice management systems. And that's kind of what's propelled us over the last year and a half. And we've signed up some huge DSOs, and it's been incredible.
So, again, I have these conversations on a regular basis. So to clarify, now if a group they're acquiring offices and they are not transitioning to a single platform, you are pulling the data, right, and writing to a centralized platform or hosted platform that they are accessing that platform for any reporting, for any access. Um,
And
so
it's
would those
apple
be
to
field
apple.
people or would those be right? Because the practices are still using those individual PMSs.
Yeah, yeah. So usually it's for like the central office where they're like, oh,
Yeah,
we want to
sure.
see
Okay.
and compare all our locations.
Of
All the
course.
data is the same, right? And so like this is so much easier now to build reporting engines or build reports off of this data. In fact, we just put it into a system called BigQuery. It's a very common analytics database. It's hosted on
Yeah.
Google Cloud, and we give them full access to it. So it's like their own data warehouse. Really, what we specialize in is just getting the data out, transforming it into this unified schema, and putting it into your data warehouse for you. And we just do a nightly sync, and it's been pretty great. It's been pretty great so far, helping a lot of companies just get access to reports that they couldn't get before, and a lot easier, saving operations people hours and hours of time. A lot of them are aggregating reports remotely still, where they're remoting into all these different practice management systems, running reports, bringing them in, sticking them in Excel spreadsheets. It's a nightmare. I saw that and I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me! You can't do it that way. This is not
I
good."
talk to them all the time,
Oof.
right? So many groups of all different sizes that data is the challenge. And so I don't know if Jake told you about this, but I have for the last, I don't know, 4+ years created automated workflows around data, specifically around revenue cycle and redundancies in the
That is
practice to
awesome.
give time back. So in giving that time back, you were asking before we started, right? Why the dental efficiency guy? How'd you get to today? Well, because in giving time back and reducing cost, optimizing efficiency. So that's that's
I
kind of
love
where
it.
it came from.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it, and I love that you have that passion, and that's kind of like your theme. You're the dental efficiency guy. I feel like I share that passion with you because I see these people spending time doing things that, like, quite literally no one really wants to do. They could be doing something else that's so much more valuable. um,
Yes.
and so it's like I love taking away those hours, letting you repurpose those hours to something that's going to really drive the business.
Absolutely. Driving the top line, driving the bottom line, right? And more patient care, more treatment acceptance, reducing cost. List goes on, but impact.
Love it.
Yep. So we know we're very aligned there, and I actually didn't realize that that's exactly what you guys were doing. But what are some of the data challenges or pitfalls like when you start working with a customer, right? surely there's certain aspects that are custom to what you guys are creating, right? Working with different practice managements and pulling data and then converting data. So what are some of the, I'm sure you see some messes that you have to help streamline or simplify in order to make it happen, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down if you're dealing with different practice management systems, it is very interesting in seeing they have to have a really good fundamental understanding in the central office on how like the different reports and the different systems that things do. And it's so there's a lot of gotchas. Like EagleSoft is a big one on the way they do some of their reports. Like they have three types of adjustments. You can do a collections adjustment, a production adjustment, or an adjustment adjustment. Everyone's like, what's an adjustment adjustment? It's just an adjustment. I don't know. You don't put it anywhere. And so you have to make these decisions on like, okay, what are we going to do with adjustment adjustments? And, or sometimes they're running the report, you run their production report in EagleSoft and it shows net production actually. If you do the provider production report and then it has the adjustments on the right, and so if you don't understand how that all works, when you're trying to compensate doctors, for instance, on
Sure.
production,
It's very
to really
extremely
compensate
challenging
everyone's
or virtually
it's
impossible to
super
figure
hard.
out.
Super hard.
The the conversation that we're having right now, honestly, again, I've been an operator for many years and having operated practices and consult on operations with practices, it makes me wonder how any group continues to work with that practice management because I want simplicity and consistency and like the ability to pull data out exactly how I want to see it to know that the numbers that I am looking at are accurate
Yeah.
because accuracy is the key whether you're looking at imaging, you're doing dentistry or you're using data. And so again, that's not necessarily a not specific, it's just certain antiquated practice management. If you're not able to get what you want, you have to have a solution to make sure that that data is accurate. It's so key, so key.
Yeah, totally.
Um,
I think you're going to see this getting access to this data is more and more important, especially in the age of AI. You know, so many of our customers on the data on the integration platform side, which is just this unified API, is that we have hundreds of customers that are building AI products in dental, and they need access to that data, and that's what makes those companies tick. And so what you're seeing though is a lot of the PMS vendors are like, oh, this data is becoming more and more valuable. Like we're going to even lock it down even more. You're seeing that even outside of dentistry, actually, which is really interesting. Salesforce, for instance, just released an updated terms of service that it's like you can't train your AI models with the data from Salesforce, and everyone's kind of like, "What is
oh
happening?"
wow.
Yeah, and I think they're going to have to end up fixing that and taking that back because that's too far.
Sure, the
But it's
largest
just
CRM.
yeah, it's interesting. It's like if I was picking a practice management system right now, if I was a new dentist setting up a new office, access to data and accessing that data easily and having control over it is a huge decision making point at this point, because if you don't have it, or you have a practice management system where the data is hard to get, you just won't get access to a lot of these new AI tools because they won't integrate with you if it's hard to get or too expensive.
Yeah. Did I just see, I might have heard it on your podcast, as a matter of fact, the Dental Disruptor podcast, that recently Open Dental is no longer open,
they they close source, which is pretty interesting. So they're no longer open source. They close source.
meaning you can no longer create like a fork or API into it.
Correct. You can't fork it. You can't look at the source code anymore going forward. They are still using a version of MySQL database, so technically you still have good read access to your data accessibility. But it is interesting. I think the main reason they're doing it is because if the source code is open, it shows us all how to get access to that data without them. And now they have a similar system to like Dentrix, where you have to pay them to write back. And so for most, the big motive for them is definitely a revenue driver, not a security driver, in my opinion. But you're right. Yeah, I mean, dental's it's interesting just how valuable the data can be, and I think all these vendors are like, yeah, we need to control this more so that we can get revenue out of it. But which is unfortunate. Maybe one day we'll all chip in and build the new open source dental software and let everyone have access. But that's, as you know, that would take a lot of work. So not anytime.
Very, very long time, yes, which is why it doesn't happen, right?
Yep.
There are some really, really great cloud-based, newer, they've been around for a while, solutions. But again, everybody wants to have that all in one, and there's just not, there's a lot of different mindsets as to what that all in one is or would be. So, uh, no, I have worked with all the different PMSs for a very long time, be it integrations with imaging or from a practice management standpoint. And so we're 100% aligned there, Clint, that getting access to the data, knowing that the data can be entered consistently, right? You know that you can extract it consistently, right? And that what you're extracting is one to one with what it should be, are like basic keys to operations. Because if you're looking at reports and, in 10 offices, it's one way, and another 10, it's a whole completely different way, or you have two team members that are doing it one way, like that makes like operations very challenging, right? If you can't measure it, how can you consistently manage it?
Yeah, totally.
Uh,
Operations
so
can be a nightmare because they don't, a lot of these don't lock down, right? So it's like, oh, I made a mistake last month. I went back and deleted a transaction. It's like, oh, we already ran reports for the month. Like, don't delete the transaction, just add another adjustment. But like little
yeah,
things
I
like
was
that,
I
right?
was always very big on permissions
Yeah.
and making sure they were spelled out very clearly in order to keep things like that from happening. So I always advise on that, and like hosting a server if you are using OpenDental, and just little things that make access to data much simpler, easier.
Yeah, that makes
Uh,
sense.
yeah, but so yeah, with that being said, is that where you see, I guess, the integration business going? Right, software is being written much much quicker. All these tools are being created because of AI very quickly. Uh, Integrations occur quicker. Code is written almost immediately, or base code, right? Foundational code. Not all, you still have to, prompt and then write all of the intricacies. But I mean, the meat and potatoes can be created. And so where do you see the future between, okay, so there's the I just don't see these PMS vendors are going to continue to develop internally.
Yeah. You know, what's going to be interesting is if we're looking at like what I think the long-term vision is. I think the user interface for a practice management system becomes a lot more AI voice specific. And so, like, if you're the future of dentistry is, the hygienist comes in and cleans. When the doctor comes in, he's dictating to an AI, not the hygienist, what's going on as he's looking at your teeth. And the AI is going to do scheduling. It's going to do everything right there while the person's in the chair, treatment plans, everything. It'll build user interfaces on the fly as needed. And so I think the future is this underlying data structure. So there's like a database that has all the data, and then there's AI interfaces to that data, and that's the future. And so I do think, like, if a lot of these practice management vendors are looking at like the long term vision, I hope they're seeing that, where it's like, oh, our user interface is going to change a lot because in the future there might be a lot less clicking going on. There's going to be a lot more interaction with AI. And so this is like one of the first opportunities that I've seen where I'm like, okay, over the next 5 to 10 years, we could see a major disruption in the practice management systems. And that really excites me because I hate these chokeholds that they have currently. And I think you're going to start seeing some replacements. You're going to see scheduling AIs that, yeah, they integrate with the practice management systems now, but pretty soon they're just going to have their own data structures, right? And all scheduling is just going to happen separately from the practice management system. So that's where I kind of hope things are going as far as the long term future is that
Interesting.
you control the data. It's, you have access to it. You can grant permission to anyone you want because it's your data to access it. and then the user interfaces to those data are AI driven. So
Makes a lot of sense. It definitely makes sense because you see well, again, the data is the basis, and having access to data is really the leverage that these closed systems, right? That's what they're doing, is leveraging the data, and it's no longer as difficult to create the integrations and the software, like the tools. So people are going to be able to create the tools fast. So it makes a lot of sense. And I say that with a grain of salt. Like, again, com- I completely appreciate, I know the complexity in creating a practice management software. So I'm not minimizing that. Just many of the tools that are now working around them are made relatively quickly.
yeah,
Especially with us, for the last almost 6 years, creating automated workflows that work directly with practice management, and then also working with carriers, insurance carriers. You can imagine we get it from both sides, right? Carriers make changes and the practice management softwares make the changes. So we're always having to develop to work with both.
yeah, you sound like you know the pain of integrating. And yeah, when you're dealing with the insurance carriers on top of the practice management system, and every insurance carrier has their own schema, and oh man, it's a nightmare.
Yes, and they intentionally change them very often just to make it more difficult to get paid.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
it's such a pain.
So it's a similar situation to what you're dealing with when you have to pay to get access to the data. So yes, trust me, I fully understand it. And then even going back to, like, on the imaging, on whether it's CBCT, 2D imaging, or any imaging, has to integrate. And so passing images, they're large, especially CBCT, they are large files. And so there are many um, CBCT vendors that pans will go, but 3D will not, still to this day,
Oh wow,
because
they're too
again,
big.
they don't want to house that data, or the size of the data, or even provide links. There might be a thumbnail now that opens, but that's been a challenge on the imaging side for a very long time.
That's super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, just this year, as a matter of fact, all of the diagnostic AIs just released within the last couple months that now they will be working with 3D imaging, right? With the
Oh
slice
wow.
data in 3D imaging. So
So like
the 2D
Pearl
has been
or
around
Dent.
for years.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's taken that long to get, I guess, because of the complexity of the data, right? The number of slices, 600 slices plus, and the ability to read all of them and understand how they, slice thickness, and how it differs. So that's just, I I would imagine that I don't even want to conceptualize how it's done, but yeah, it's been something on the 3D imaging side, because it's so much more challenging being diagnostic, right, with CBCT images, which is actually a challenge to people. The people that still don't use them, they don't use them because they are intimidated by the diagnosis of the 3D imaging. So I think that will also help um, to eliminate that obstacle. Anyway, side note, right? I told you I have a decade of plus of imaging experience and equipment experience, and that's one of those things on the equipment side that will help to eliminate, streamline, again, and educate and simplify the process
Very cool.
of installation through education. So anyway, so at Kala, where do you generally reach, right? So when you work with a group, is it because they have an idea, like, this is this is what we want to see happen, or they have so much pain and a challenge, right, in like the way they're operating, that they're realizing that they have to do something? Like, when you get to them,
Yeah, I think it's a
when do
little
you normally
it's a
reach
little
them?
both, right? Depends on how big they are, how mature they are. If it's a larger DSO, 100 plus locations, we'll say, larger in this case, they usually have an idea at least of what a data warehouse is, and they understand that that's probably what they want. If you're looking at like a mid market, usually we're talking about their pain points. So like if we're talking like 10 to 50 locations, it's like, hey, are you having trouble, with these type of reporting, reporting or knowing what's going on, or paying doctors and are getting accurate data, those type of things. And once they recognize that, yeah, we have those problems, then we present the solutions with the data warehousing. And if your DSO is private equity backed, the private equity guys all know about data warehousing, right? Because this is like a very
Of
common
course.
thing in software companies and other industries. And so they're like, hey, we're going to mandate that you have to have a data warehouse here because we need to see what's going on in these businesses, and we can't see it right now, especially with all these on-premise systems. So those are kind of like the three angles that we take. Right now, it's been a lot of word of mouth and just LinkedIn marketing and podcasts like yours, where someone will just hear about us and reach out and say, hey, this sounds like something we need. And um, you know, the DSO, this is the first time that I've like focused on the DSO space. And at Weave, we started on the just individual offices and worked our way up to smaller DSOs. And even now, they just did their launch for like larger multi locations just a year ago. So it was never something that they specialized in. And now they're getting better at it. But the whole sales process and the way DSOs operate has been really fun for me and really exciting to see that side of the industry a lot more. And I love our customers have been so great to work with, and it's been fun.
It's interesting, because my thought, obviously working in the space as well, um, I I'm very familiar with that process as well, because again, we're always looking to streamline and simplify the data so that if they are centralized, they are very aware of the reports that they can't get, or the data that they don't have access to, or the data that is not at their fingertips. Um, those that are not centralized yet, they are. It also depends on the makeup. One common thing in DSOs today, they say if you've seen one DSO, you've seen one DSO, right? Where it used to be that all DSOs were fairly consistent. Like you either had the affiliated or you had the branded models, and the structure was fairly consistent. Again, I say that there were differences, of course, but the operational models of PC versus how doctors were paid, or how doctors affiliated, either owned or affiliated, that was consistent. Now there
Yeah.
are so many different arrangements and makeups, um, you know, DPOs. There it goes on and on how they're structured, which is really really neat in understanding the models, and then the ways in which uh, they're they can optimally scale, as well as how we can serve them, because it varies a little bit by the makeup, as well as seeing, okay, it's really cool to see like how they're growing based on the implementation of those solutions, which is largely my passion in helping groups scale of all different sizes. So I was excited to talk to you. I also, you know, culture is one of those things, right? On the consulting side of my business, culture is one of those things that, as a foundation for groups, especially, they reach a certain point in growth. And in order to scale to that next level, they reach a threshold. And many times that threshold is reached organically or through combination, but the people reach a point to where the culture has to evolve or grow in order to be the new foundation for that next level of growth. And so with partners, we've that's been a situation that we building leaders at all different levels of the organization, and creating an empowered, accountable culture with again, the data is very important to that because if people aren't accountable to the numbers or the data, how do you hold them accountable? How do you have a culture where people understand the business, right? And like are self accountable or accountable to each other as opposed to just a natural hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Data has to be available and easily accessed if you're going to do an accountability based culture. Otherwise, what are you doing, right? Yeah, there's no, you got to have accurate data, or the reports mean nothing, right? So yeah, I love that. I love it. I love accountability based cultures for sure, but also just in general. I love good cultures, and that's like creating cultures where people want to work. One of our biggest drivers at Weave was, hey, we want to hire as many people as possible. This is one of the single biggest impacts we can have on people's lives is creating a job for them what they love coming to work every day, and they get to grow and progress as a human, not just in their career, but like we want their life to be better, right? Because if things are
Yeah,
better at
that's
work,
amazing.
they go home, they're nicer to their kids, they're nicer to their spouse. All of those things can you just forget how much like a boss impacts the lives of the people that report to you. And we wanted to create that special place where it's like, yeah, we want to have this impact on our community and make it a great place to work.
And so what are some of those things that you did that were differentiations? If you could, one, two, or three things that stand out to you that were differentiations at Weave that allowed that culture. I mean, because I have heard time and time again that the culture was the foundation for building it to that amazing valuation.
Yeah, I think that it was one of the biggest parts of it. And I'll say nothing that we came up with was necessary original. We just looked and saw, what is the best culture that, and according to our opinion, and did a bunch of research, right? Google did that huge foundational research on productivity and teams, and
Yeah,
like what makes teams the most productive versus the other productive. And
really cool
far,
stuff, right? Like,
yeah,
having workout facilities and walks and like, time where people get together in social situations as much as they do in work situations and forced team, right? Forced synergy, right? They're bringing
yeah.
people together.
And one of
Just
the biggest differentiator, according to that study, that 2 year long study, was that what they called psychological safety was the biggest driver of team performance. And that means, the
wow.
ability to feel safe with your team, be able to take risks. Now, this is all very software focused, but I'm sure it can apply to dentistry. I've not thought about it from like a DSO perspective, but I'm sure if you looked at it, you could apply it. But it was like if you're too afraid to take some risks, or you're afraid of getting fired, or if you're afraid of getting yelled at if you're the bearer of bad news, then everyone's going to sugarcoat everything. You're not going to know about the problems in your business. And so, everyone needs to feel like work is a safe place to, talk about what's wrong. And so
Yes.
we really, really
Honesty and
built that culture.
transparency is important in a
Yeah.
culture, right?
Yeah.
Top to bottom.
And then the other thing I'd say is we just really focused on our employees first. And so people first is what we called it. People, then the product, and then the profits would follow. And so we felt like if we focused on our employees, focused and then on the product would be built by the best employees because we get to hire the best because we treat them the best. And we get the best product, and then the profits follow that because that's what happens if you build the best product.
That is so amazing. I'm always, when in looking at the 3 buckets, right? The 3 Ps, right? People are the in any practice, you have your patients, your people, and your profit, because the patients obviously are a driver, but when the profit comes before the people, um, it lasts for a period of time, but it can't for a long time.
That's right. It's short term.
I I add a 4th P because systems and processes
Mm,
need to be in place, consistency, like processes have to be in place for people to be successful.
love that.
And so, you know, I am very passionate about when looking at an organization, are the people supported? Or do the systems and process allow those people to be successful day in and day
Love
out?
that.
Are they
Love that.
winning more than they're losing, right? Like on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome. I love it.
so, I too am a student of companies that create, fabulous cultures and think about how those dynamics can play into dental group practice, because for the longest time it was a very high stress environment. And so in a high stress environment, how do you lower the stress? You do that through all the things that we were just talking about, right?
Yeah.
Creating an environment that allows people to fail forward, to have paths for growth, to be intrinsically motivated, and to enjoy what they're doing. Um, and I know, again, easier said than done, but that's why I wanted to touch on that, tonight in our conversation. How do how do people get in touch with you, Clint? Like, if they're interested in learning about Kolla, or they want to learn more, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, you can go check us out on our website at getkolla.com. So get KOLLA.com, or you can just email me directly, Clint at getkolla.com. Happy to talk about any of it. If you're building a software company in dental, or building a product in dental and want to ask for advice on product, or my co-founder was our first VP of sales at Weave, and so he got to see all the different layers of sales at Weave. So we give a lot of our customers, or even non-customers, just sales advice, or just talking about the industry in general. We love talking about it, passionate about it. So it doesn't have to be salesy at all. It's just we just love meeting people and talking about it. So
Wow, that's great. And in fact, I might take you up on that at some point as well. That's a
100%.
conversation for another day. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been fantastic diving into both data as well as culture, and getting meeting you and learning about you, and what you guys do at Kala. There's so much need for it, especially in group practice, but even in large single practices, any large practice that has a lot of data, there's an opportunity to streamline, simplify, create a process, right? To make those workflows around data consistent and repeatable. And I think, so it's been a pleasure just diving into it with you. I am very passionate about the impact, that not only data can make, but I mean, essentially, it tells the story of what we're doing on a daily basis, right? So all the patient care that we provide in dentistry, or the way that we serve to enable patient care on a higher level, the impact that we're making on a daily basis, the way that we move that needle is through, right? The data tells that story of how we did. And in order for us to deliver more patient care, the data has to be accessible, but the data also has to be accurate. And so I think both access as well as accuracy are opportunities, and you guys fill that niche, in Kala, and I think we'll continue to, as all these AI tools continue to come to light. So I look forward to it. I have a feeling, through further conversations, there's other, you know, whether that's talking to your partner or talking to you as well, we could dive deeper into some of the things we touched on today, because you know, I love the way that impact can apply to the industry. So it's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. Um, so
Pleasure was mine.
to all our
This has been
listeners,
great.
again, reach out to Clint, his team at Kolla. That is getkolla.com, or Clint, one more time, your email address.
Yep, it's Clint at getkolla.com. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for all our listeners, again, hopefully you gained insight, tips, tricks, and possibly a cheat code tonight to level up the dental game. Catch us on the next episode. Clint, thank you. All have a
Thanks,
great
Gabe.
night.
Thank you so much.